you're seeing now the convergence of these three big crises. Number one, President Trump attempting to stop the kinetic part of the Third World War and that arc of instability from Kursk and Ukraine all the way down through the Middle East, Persia, the Southern Arabian Peninsula to the Red Sea. He's trying to stop the kinetic part. And guess what? Over the last 72 hours, things look a lot grimmer than they've looked before. Number two, his Article 2 powers in basically stopping the invasion and deporting the 13 million, as Mark Green tells us, and Mark's the head of the Homeland Security Committee, 13 million illegal alien invaders here. The third is the entire economic model, the financial model, the big beautiful bill, the appropriations, getting the debt under control, and part of that in the restructuring of the American economy and the commercial relationships on trade is his Article 2 powers to call for an emergency here for the fentanyl, the million people have been killed on fentanyl, which the three-judge panel just overruled. So you have both the national security in stopping the invasion, deporting. The other side of the coin is the chemical warfare attack of fentanyl, which he's trying to stop using tariffs both on Mexico and Canada and the Chinese Communist Party that they're stopping. All three of those, the constitutional crisis, the economic and debt crisis, and the Third World War, the kinetic part, are all converging, Dan, into one thing that we're seeing before us, just 4 months after the guy took over and is doing an extraordinary job. This next 100 or 200 days will really set, I think, the legacy of President Trump. It's 10 years on June 15th and came down the golden escalator. I believe that's a preamble. I think that whole decade we've gone through, everything we've gone through of people with the Trump movement, people like yourselves that there at the beginning that backed President Trump, that decade is just a preamble to this very intense summer that we're going to go through that really has already started.
Thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. I'm Dan Ball. With bold leadership and a no-nonsense attitude and unmatched determination and grit, the 47th President of the United States is improving our lives. He's bolstering national security. That's a given. Look what he's doing at the border. Doesn't take an act of Congress. It takes a real leader. He's been trying to kickstart America's financial engine, doing that with the trade negotiations and the tariffs. He's brought in trillions of dollars in new money when it comes to investments from several different countries. We're talking trillions with a T. Joe and Kamala couldn't do that. And oh, by the way, we're just getting started. It's only May. He's only been in since January 20th, folks. Again, it's been about 130 days since Trump was sworn in, and he has accomplished more in that very short period of time than the Biden regime did in 4 years. In fact, over the entire 5-decade span of JoJo's failed political career. Let's think about it. I mean, we've heard from folks on both sides of the aisle for decades that Joe was most likely one of the dumbest senators ever. He was nothing more than a fixturehead as VP. And then as president, well, if you watch this show, you know. Plus, you've been living the nightmare for the last 4 years. President Trump trying to secure the homeland, launching an unprecedented crackdown on illegal aliens and the deadly drugs and guns and gangbangers flowing into our country with remarkable success. And by the way, folks, he started that on day one. You heard from Tom Homan on this program last night. They have been out there kicking down doors and arresting and throwing bad hombres out of this country since Trump was sworn in. During President Trump's first full month in office, illegal border crossings fell to the lowest level ever recorded, down 94%. ICE arrests of illegals have surged 627%. You've got foreign invaders taking note, and they're doing the actual self-deportation that Trump used that CBP-1 app. They reversed it and said, now use the app to get the hell out. I mean, these are things that have never been done before with any leader. New data reveals strong economic momentum as well, even though the mainstream media keeps lying. The core gross domestic product, which has grown a strong 3%, okay, with gross domestic investment soaring 22%. That's all thanks to Trump. Our commander-in-chief also secured those trillions of dollars in great deals from around the globe. $600 billion from the Saudis, $1.2 trillion from the Qataris, $200 billion from the United Arab Emirates. All big commercial deals. That's going to mean jobs, more tax revenue. Once again, though, when it comes to trying to secure this border, everything Trump does, I don't care if it's the tariffs or if it's the border, whatever, there's somebody trying to block it. When he was a candidate, it was the lawfare, right? Throw ridiculous charges at him, try to throw him in jail, try to fine the hell out of him. Now that he's the president, it's let's use radical leftist judges dressed in their little black robes, trying to legislate from the bench, striking down what President Trump has been trying to do, whether it's the border or Liberation Day, the tariffs, right? They're exceeding their authority. A 3-judge panel, the U.S. Court of International Trade, ruled unanimously yesterday, declaring that Trump overstepped his powers by imposing tariffs of over 60 trading partners without congressional approval. Worse yet, the ruling mandates the reversal of the tariffs already collected, requiring the government to refund duties paid by importers. Well, the Trump administration filed an appeal immediately, seeking to reinstate the tariffs. The appeal argues that the president has broad authority to impose tariffs under emergency powers. And guess what? That judge then, just a short time ago today, put a stay and allowed the tariffs to stay in effect until this most likely goes all the way to the Supreme Court, which shows you what? That these judges are overstepping their powers, period. D.C. District Court Judge Rudolph Contreras declaring the International Economic Emergency Powers Act does not authorize the president to impose the tariffs set forth. Again, they were reinstated because another federal judge, this time it was the Federal Appeals Court, granted this stay. It's almost like a battle of the judges. And by the way, the hits keep coming from these judges. On Wednesday, a federal judge temporarily blocked the Trump administration from ending several Biden-era humanitarian parole programs. U.S. District Court Judge Indira Telwani ruled the Trump administration must resume processing applications for humanitarian parolees that allow individuals from Afghanistan, Latin America, and Ukraine to live and work here temporarily. The Justice Department is appealing that one. You know what'll probably happen. They'll put a stay on it, and Trump will be able to continue doing what he's doing. Promises made, promises kept, right? Earlier today, a federal judge extended a temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration's attempt to revoke Harvard University's certification to enroll international students. U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs decided to maintain the temporary block on the Department of Homeland Security's revocation of Harvard's certification under the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. More legal wrangling on this one will be coming. This, as the White House Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, hammers these men and women that keep interfering with President Trump's executive authority powers. Listen.
President Trump had more injunctions in one full month of office in February than Joe Biden had in 3 years. And let me roll through some of these radical injunctions to paint the picture for the American people at home. A court ordered the Trump administration to return already deported terrorist aliens back to the United States. A court has ruled the Trump administration can't even temporarily pause our refugee programs. Courts prohibited the Trump administration from eliminating federal funding for child transgender surgery and mutilation, a practice that the American people overwhelmingly reject. A court also held that the Trump administration could not ban people experiencing gender dysphoria or mental health issues from serving in the military. Ridiculous. Courts prohibited the removal of transgender women from women's prisons despite potential physical harm to real women in those prisons, biological women. A Northern District of California judge issued an absurd ruling that the president cannot fire people within the executive branch. A court also ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of already fired employees in several cases. A federal judge blocked the Trump administration from defunding the Department of Education, another signature campaign promise that this president has the power to implement. Courts ordered the Trump administration could not eliminate funding for illegal DEI programs, hence the word illegal. These are illegal programs to begin with, and now the courts are trying to say this president can't roll them back. And a district court judge prohibited the president from issuing any categorical funding freezes. And then another court ordered on top of that the administration makes $2 billion of payments in 36 hours.
Wow. I feel like Caroline you need a break. That girl's been doing so much. She's so overworked because she has to come out and defend what the president is doing, the mandate given to him by we the people because of these damn judges. So much to discuss here. So I thought we should do kind of a report card on the Trump administration, how things are going for 47, what he's been able to accomplish even with the roadblocks, everything that he's been facing thanks to these judges and Democrats and lefties and the mainstream media, while he's just trying to implement the America First agenda that we voted for. And who better to provide insight into all things MAGA than my good friend, former White House chief strategist to President Trump during his first term and host of the great show, I'm sure you'll watch it, Bannon's War Room over on Real America's Voice, my pal, Steve Bannon, back on the program. Steve, it was lawfare, was there warfare when he was candidate Trump. Now it's still lawfare with these damn judges while he's the president and has the executive power, Steve. Just go. I got so many, I don't know where to begin. We can start with the tariffs, the border, the education. I mean, how you been, brother?
Let's start with, first off, I want to congratulate you and your production team. That is probably, in 5 minutes, the best succinct summary of exactly where we are I've ever heard. So
Well, thanks,
just
Steve.
congratulations.
Appreciate
No,
that.
that was really,
I
that
got
was
a great
quite
team
powerful.
back there.
No, really. I think it's all of it. Here's, I think if you step back and look at a second what you're talking about, Aunt Caroline, you're seeing now the convergence of these three big crises. Number one, President Trump attempting to stop the kinetic part of the Third World War and that arc of instability from Kursk and Ukraine all the way down through the Middle East, Persia, the Southern Arabian Peninsula to the Red Sea. He's trying to stop the kinetic part. And guess what? Over the last 72 hours, things look a lot grimmer than they've looked before. Number two, his Article 2 powers in basically stopping the invasion and deporting the 13 million, as Mark Green tells us, and Mark's the head of the Homeland Security Committee, 13 million illegal alien invaders here. The third is the entire economic model, the financial model, the big beautiful bill, the appropriations, getting the debt under control, and part of that in the restructuring of the American economy and the commercial relationships on trade is his Article 2 powers to call for an emergency here for the fentanyl, the million people have been killed on fentanyl, which the three-judge panel just overruled. So you have both the national security in stopping the invasion, deporting. The other side of the coin is the chemical warfare attack of fentanyl, which he's trying to stop using tariffs both on Mexico and Canada and the Chinese Communist Party that they're stopping. All three of those, the constitutional crisis, the economic and debt crisis, and the Third World War, the kinetic part, are all converging, Dan, into one thing that we're seeing before us, just 4 months after the guy took over and is doing an extraordinary job. This next 100 or 200 days will really set, I think, the legacy of President Trump. It's 10 years on June 15th and came down the golden escalator. I believe that's a preamble. I think that whole decade we've gone through, everything we've gone through of people with the Trump movement, people like yourselves that there at the beginning that backed President Trump, that decade is just a preamble to this very intense summer that we're going to go through that really has already started.
I agree with you, Steve. And I'll tell you, it's funny. I remember that escalator ride and people talking about it. And me going, because I'd watched him on The Apprentice and I'd met him 20-some years ago at a casino he put his name on in Southern California and sat next to him at a dinner. I knew him as the TV star billionaire guy. And so when he came out and there was 15 other Republicans out there, right? Wasn't it 16 when Trump first came on the scene? I'm like, I think I like this guy. But man, he's saying things that I've never heard anybody say before. You fast forward 10 years and you see, Steve, that this MAGA movement, this America First agenda that we all, you, me, millions of Americans embraced with President Trump as the leader of it, and you right in the background helping out, Steve. Everybody knows you're Mr. MAGA. It's wonderful to see it come to fruition, but we've still got so many damn weak rhino Republicans in the House and Senate that don't want to implement what he wants. They don't want to codify everything he's doing. So let's go to that part, because I want your input on the party, on the good old GOP, some of the holdouts still, because everybody keeps using that C word, codify. Why isn't the House bringing up more legislation? The Speaker, where you at, Mike? Bringing up more bills so that we can codify everything Trump's doing. Because God forbid, Steve, a Democrat president gets in 4 years, they'll just undo everything.
You know, Lincoln was the first to say, hey, look, the Emancipation Proclamation is just an executive order. You remember, he needed articles to the Constitution to change it. That's why he fought so hard to get it. He understood even the Emancipation Proclamation is an executive order and can be changed with the next president. President Trump understands the same thing. Dan, what I think is actually a higher priority, even in codification of what he's doing legislatively on so many important things, is we got to codify the cuts that Doge either found or didn't find. Right now,
yes.
we know we have a rescission of $9 billion. It's kind of symbolic because it's got the $2 billion for NPR and PBS, and another $7 trillion, I think, that Doge found. But Doge even admitted at the end of the day they didn't find the trillions, but they're talking about $165 billion. That is a lot of money. If that really is waste, fraud, and abuse, and not programmatically, which being taken care of in the appropriations process, I think Russ Vought needs to come forward, and we got to put the feet to the fire. Remember, it's the House and Lindsey Graham in the Senate that says you got to use rescissions. Rescissions gets Congress back involved in it to take a vote, just the majority, which we have the majority on both sides. But if you don't have rescissions, president has impoundment. And impoundment's another thing that's going to have to go to the Supreme Court. My point is, under his Article 2 powers, if they're not prepared to back the rescissions and they're not prepared to codify the at least the waste and the fraud that Doge says they found, then we ought to go to impoundments and get it. But we got to get it out to the American people that this stuff was found, that actually Doge had a productive life. And I think it's outrageous that there's all this fighting and kind of turning the, Marjorie Taylor Greene's been great about this, saying we have to do this. APL, Anna Paulina Luna came out this morning and says this has to happen. You know why? Because they go back to their constituents and people are saying, hey, there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse was found. Why hasn't it been taken out of the budget?
Yeah.
Where is this? And so the methodology you use, whether it's a rescission that the House and Senate vote on, or it's just impoundment. And remember, as soon as Trump impounds it under his Article 2 power, they're going to go to court. But that's fine because, look, the fight here on the unified executive theory or the Article 2 powers, he is chief executive officer of the United States government. That means he can impound money if he thinks programs have been done or not meeting their goals, and he can let go fire personnel, number one. Number two, he's commander-in-chief of the armed forces. If he wants to deport people and his commander-in-chief, under his commander-in-chief who are illegal aliens, he can deport them. Number three, he's the chief magistrate and the chief law enforcement officer. This is what they're fighting. And guess what? They are winning to the degree that to delay is to deny. And they realize this is a holding action, but right now it's the only thing the radical Democrats have. And in their perspective, it's working because it's slowing down President Trump.
Right.
To get to the 13 million deportations, you got to get, as you've referred to them, the bad hombres out. Right now, they're hanging us up on the bad hombres, which 90% of the American people are saying have got to get out of the country.
Yeah,
so this is why it's a constitutional crisis right now.
It is. It is. Democrats, I don't want to say don't understand the Constitution. They do. They're just disregarding it. They have literally torn it up and thrown it in our faces because they don't understand. They do. Pardon me, stop saying that phrase. They understand the president's power. They just don't like what Trump's implementing. So then they're using these federal district court judges who have no ultimate power over the president's decisions and his EOs to try and, like you said, delay, which is to deny. You brought up PPS and NPR. That's a couple bill right there. I know a judge held that one up too. Did that ever get through, or he can still keep moving forward with cutting that funding, or was that still waiting on appeals? Because it seems like every other day there's an appeal judge, then another judge says, no, there's a stay, then another judge says
there's
this,
There's 180 right now, I think, federal cases going on, mainly driven. Well, and as you just mentioned, they're judge shopping in Rhode Island, in the Bay Area, in Boston, Massachusetts, where these judges are putting out nationwide bans, nationwide stays. So they're locking us up, and they know it's working right now, even if temporarily. No, they did block it in court. That's why I think that's one of the reasons it's one of the first on the rescissions they're coming back with. The billion that goes to NPR and a billion that goes to PBS is in the first of the rescissions. My point is, let's just get on with it. We're going, Dan, because I'm telling you, brother, I can see where this is going. We've had this issue before with two of our toughest presidents, Andrew Jackson and Abraham Lincoln, where the courts basically were overruling what they were saying. And Jackson has that famous phrase, hey, if the court's gonna overrule it, let them enforce it. Okay, I think we're hurtling towards, that's why we're in a constitutional crisis now. I don't believe Donald J. Trump is going to sit there and allow any court to get in between him and what he believes is his duties and responsibilities and the oath he took to heaven to basically defend the constitutions from all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yes.
I think President Trump is going to sit there, and this is why, to me, it's got to be handled at the Supreme Court, both on the tariffs now because of the issue with fentanyl and the emergency use he did, and the emergency use of the invasion of Venezuela and Central America to basically deport these bad hombres. Those are two sides of the same coin. I think that Roberts and the court have to come to some conclusion by the end of June. I don't think we can go 90 days or 100 days until they come back in October. I think this summer is already going to be hot enough. I think we have to take this one off the table. I think Chief Justice Roberts, who doesn't like facing these types of things, is going to have to man up. We're going to have to do it, and we got to do it by the end of June. And hey, we're already in, we're almost at the 1st of June. So the folks at home that watch your show should just buckle up, because this summer is going to be as intense and urgent as any summer in the history of this country.
Few seconds left, Steve. If you're given the president, with everything he's facing, all these activist judges, the 99% of the mainstream media lying about what he's doing in his agenda, if you had to give him a report card grade with 130 days in, after all the hurdles he's jumping, where does Steve Bannon put President Trump right now with the agenda?
Oh, it's A++. I mean, it's, any one of these, Dan, any one of these verticals has not been, the reason he's doing it because the political class has kicked the can down the road for 50 years. Yep. Any one of the verticals is Herculean and would win somebody the Nobel Prize and a permanent placement on Mount Rushmore. It's General Washington, it's Abraham Lincoln, it's Donald Trump. The birth of the nation, the rebirth of the nation, and the rejuvenation of the nation. That's the level that he's at.
Love it. Check out Steve's show over at Real America's Voice. It's the War Room. You know it, you love it. Steve, as always, thank you, brother. Best of the family. Take care.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you, brother.
Yep. Looking for news that actually tells the truth, not just the headlines they want you to hear? Then it's time to sign up for OAN Live. It's your go-to source for unfiltered news, sharp debate, and 5 hard-hitting political talk shows, including my show, Real America with Dan Ball. You can watch live anytime, anywhere. No noise, no nonsense, just real reporting and bold conversations that matter to you and your family. You can sign up for OAN Live now to see the truth unfold, and you can catch Real America every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just go to live.onn.com. Again, that's live.onn.com and sign up today and start watching every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern.